What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy Divisional Round weekend. Let's buckle up because we have a lot on the line. And let's face it, we spend all year long watching all these football games for these moments and talk about legacies being on the line for star quarterbacks, star players. I mean, there is a chance for a lot of guys to really cement themselves over these next couple weeks, and kind of wanted to dive into that. I don't have a solution to this, but the interview process does not make sense. Something has to give, and they've kept tweaking it, but it feels completely off. We're going to do a new segment today, my hottest coach and player headed into the weekend. And because it's Fugazi Friday, I saw what I think has to be the greatest Fugazi I've ever seen today on the internet when it comes to college NIL and maybe a guy named Quinn Ewers. I'm not buying it. I am not buying it, but obviously a lot of football going on. There's a great time of year because the football games mean so much, but it's also sad. We don't have that much left when it comes to football. So let's dive right in. The reason I love sports, and I've said this forever, is like I like watching the best. Like when I was a kid, I loved watching the 49ers play the Cowboys for what was going to be the Super Bowl. I loved watching Michael Jordan. I loved watching as Tiger Woods hit the scene. And I think ratings and interest would show you so do most people. And I think what's made the NFL so special, and I've said forever, football was very, very popular when I was a kid, but obviously basketball was huge and so was baseball. The internet age when Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in the early 2000s shot off like rocket ships, to me were the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson mixed with Michael Jordan of football, and have taken it to popularities that most people probably thought were never possible, and have created the most popular sport in America by a country mile. It's so big that it's taken college football, which was extremely regional, and has made it by far the number 2 sport in America. Not even a close. Third place, they're not even looking over their shoulder. It's not a fair fight. And what this group of young quarterbacks, we'll have to see. You know, Patrick Mahomes has a long way to go. Obviously, Josh Allen and Lamar have not won anything. So when you factor in what Brady and Peyton Manning, you know, they won a combined. Brady won 7, Manning won 2, Tom went to 10, and Peyton went to 4. You got Rodgers won another. I mean, it was a pretty historic little run there of quarterbacks of just like, I mean, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think universally agreed upon. Peyton Manning is a top 5 quarterback of all time. You know, Aaron Rodgers is a polarizing one because it's like he's more talented than a lot of other guys, but it's like, God, he only got to 1 Super Bowl. Not all his fault. The defense has let him down, but is he better than Brett Favre? I think most people would argue yes, even though I think the peak of Favre might have been better. Favre got to multiple Super Bowls, but regardless, like these are the people we talk about. And I was thinking about it today driving around. Let's use Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Let's start with that game. These guys, when it's all said and done, assuming they stay healthy, and knock on wood, because they are 2 of the more entertaining players I've ever watched any sport in football. Basketball, baseball, you name it, play football. And they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. Both of them are under contracts that are worth hundreds of millions. And if they just stay healthy, they will sign much bigger contracts. When it's all said and done, their combined NFL earnings could be $1 billion. And that has nothing to do with playoffs. Honestly, it doesn't. Right? Both these guys, you know, obviously one of them has to win this game, but we could look back in 10 years and neither of them ever get to a Super Bowl. Never get to a Super Bowl, let alone win one. And that will not impact how much money those 2 guys make. So when it comes to the ability to earn and change the course of your family's life, and I mean, they're going to go down as two of the richest players, more than likely, in the history of the league at the time. It's not about the playoffs. But I think what makes the playoffs so awesome is like Josh Allen will make the same amount as the 43rd guy on the roster dressing. The playoffs is not about money. The playoffs is truly about your legacy. And I think this game is the heavyweight fight of the weekend. And there is easily a chance that they both play well, and obviously one team has to lose, and that guy will take a lot of shit, fair or not. And there's a chance if one of these defenses, which feels more likely to be the Bills, let them down, and a guy still has 300 yards and throws for three touchdowns, he's the guy we talk about because he's the breadwinner, and he's the one that drives everything in football, the quarterback. And that's what makes this all fun, man. I think one of these guys is going to be in position. I mean, listen, Lamar Jackson, if the Baltimore Ravens win, will have back-to-back opportunities to beat the Chiefs. Obviously, couldn't take them down last year, but we'll have a damn good shot again. And if Josh Allen wins, he'll get his whatever shot to beat the Chiefs. He's had a lot of them. Had a good one last year at home, lost. Played him years ago in the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game when the rule got changed for overtime and lost. And there's a chance, and we've seen it before, like no one really beat Tiger Woods or Peyton Manning or Michael Jordan. It was very, very rare. And that's maybe what we're in the middle of. But this game's huge for one of these two guys because whoever wins it is just simply going to have the bragging rights over the other guy. And regardless who ends up winning the MVP, it feels sometimes like the Heisman when the Heisman is given and then some other dude that was like third in the Heisman ends up leading his team to a national championship. And everyone's like, oh, they should have given the Heisman after the playoffs or after the national championship game. And I think that will be a lot of the conversation if the dude that doesn't win the MVP wins this game, especially if he were to go on and beat the Chiefs. And that's what makes football fun. I mean, think about Patrick Mahomes. He's, almost, I mean, a 10-point favorite in this game. I don't think you could meet a soul outside of like D'Amico Ryans, Nick Casario, McNair's kid, and the players on Houston who would pick the Houston Texans. Not a soul in America. And there's definitely not going to be a human being. Like the difference is everyone attending the Buffalo Bills game, when you walk into the stadium as a fan, you're going to be really nervous. And rightfully so. I mean, you're an underdog, even though it's coin flip game. But like, there's no guarantee you're winning that thing. There is not one human being. I'll just pick a even number. 70,000 people. That's what Arrowhead fits. There is not one person of those 70,000 people that is a Chiefs fan. Obviously, there'll be a couple Texans fans here and there. But every single Chiefs fan that enters that stadium Saturday afternoon, none of them from the morning they get up that morning, from the moment they have a few cocktails, a few beers, eat some BBQ in the parking lot, head into the stadium, it never crosses their mind they're going to lose that game. And when they win, which feels very likely, this will be Mahomes. He's the moment he started took over for Alex Smith, he's never missed the AFC Championship game. I mean, that's fucking insane. 7 straight AFC Championship games. Obviously, he's gone to 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. And then obviously they're hosting the AFC Championship game. If he wins, they're going to be favored in the game. It's pretty crazy the run they're on. Even when you look back, Brady and Belichick, they win in 01. They missed the playoffs in 02. Now, granted, they won then back-to-back in 03 and 04, but, I mean, there was just a lull there for a year. I mean, there has been no lulls. I mean, the lowest moment of this last, 5 or 6 year run, or I guess technically 7 for the Chiefs, was losing to the Raiders on Christmas Day, a regular season game. Obviously, they've lost the Super Bowl and lost AFC Championship games, to Tom Brady. I mean, think about that. And it's like, oh, yeah, they lost the one AFC Championship game to Joe Burrow, a guy that has an argument to win the MVP on a 9-8 team. So it just, I think the legacy and the discussion around Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to ever do what he's doing again. just rattle off that many AFC Championship games in a row where only once during that run he's even had to go on the road? NFL playoffs. We're talking about the NFL playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is a key to winning in the NFL playoffs. And the key to you scoring big is betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's another reason to watch your favorite players crush it in the playoffs. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big during the NFL playoffs with the DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. An underrated part about the Detroit Lions is that if Jared Goff, this would be his third conference championship game. Think about that. It wasn't that long ago that McVay essentially had to apologize to Jared Goff for kind of shitting on him. I mean, obviously they got rid of him, but McVay was very outspoken and very critical of didn't think he was any good and didn't really like him for some reason. And in my experience, I lived in the Bay Area when he was in college. I had never heard a bad word about Jared Goff. Maybe Sean McVay, who's obviously got a chance to be an all-time coach, very just in terms of urgency and no sleep and just hard charger, going 100 miles an hour, everything he does. And Jared's got a little California cool to him. But he wins this game where he's a 9.5-point favorite, and he's in the NFC Championship game for the second year in a row. He also took the Rams. It's got to be a short list of quarterbacks who have taken multiple teams to the NFC Championship game or AFC for that, either championship game. If he takes the Lions to the Super Bowl, took multiple teams to the Super Bowl, this guy was the number one overall pick. Having a pretty unreal career. I mean, this guy, lock Pro Bowler the last couple of years. Clearly one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Many would argue was the top dog in the NFC this year. It's going to be hard to argue when it's all said and done. Jared Goff's had an incredible career. Even though when you think of Jared Goff, you don't think of Lamar, Josh Allen, or Mahomes, or Peyton Manning, or Aaron Rodgers. I think it's going a lot better than people realize. Obviously, as a rookie, and I think you look at C.J. Stroud last year, incredible season, then losing the second round. No one holds against him. Loses the Baltimore Ravens. Just like this year, C.J. Stroud. Kind of a weird year. More people blame the coordinator. Lose to the Chiefs in the second round. No one's going to hold it against him. If Jaden Daniels takes one of the worst franchises in the history of sports for 20 years, I mean, an absolute laughingstock of the league under Daniel Snyder, immediately gets there. Obviously, he's not there anymore, and takes them to 12 wins, and then were to upset the Lions. I mean, just upset the Bucs on the road, and clearly they can't win a game without him being incredible, which I don't think is going to happen. But if it does, I mean, we would be talking about historic stuff as a rookie. And I think part of it, and this is where Jared Goff gets more credit, you're doing that with the Lions. You and Dan Campbell did that with the Lions. And I would throw Dan Campbell in there too. This guy took over the fucking Lions, and 4 years later has them on the precipice of going to the second straight NFC Championship game and being 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl again. That's insane. Everyone was making fun of this guy. They called him the player version of Jim Tom Sula. I mean, can you imagine how offensive that is, saying that out loud now? I was there for some of Jim Tom Sula's practices. It's the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen. Not just in sports, I would argue in business, in just a professional setting. It was a joke. And that was who he was kind of compared to. And now this guy took the Lions, like the Redskins under Snyder, the joke of the league, and has them this good with Jared Goff. Pretty crazy. Now, of course he did with Jared Goff. He's the number one overall pick. The next game is pretty fascinating because Jalen's a very polarizing player. when you just ask the simple question like, is he good at passing? It's like the guy's really good. He's been to the playoffs basically every year he's been starting. Plays on some of the best teams in the NFL. Is a playmaker. But the conversation comes up a lot like, is he good at passing? Like, would you want him to be your quarterback if you had to pass a lot? Like that's a legitimate question. And Sirianni is like, he actually is viewed much now that Dan Campbell, no one makes fun of him. It's like, is Sirianni actually closer to Tom Sula than we realize? How he's just so good at picking players. The owner spends so much money. They're such a good drafting team. They'll pay so much for coordinators. It doesn't even matter who their head coach is. But he wins this game. Him and Jalen, they get criticized a lot. People have a lot of different opinions on him. I'm guilty as well. Be their second NFC championship game in 3 years. It'd be like, and and from a roster standpoint, I think a lot of people would pick them to win the game next week. So it's like, listen, you can make fun of Sirianni all you want, and we can nitpick Jalen all we want. Their resume is going to look pretty damn good. And the Rams, like Stafford's numbers outside are pretty concerning. I saw someone throw it up. His numbers recently in freezing cold situations or snow are bad. And obviously, the older he gets, I mean, he's going to be 37. Underrated, sneaky, older, way older than you think. I think if you just ask average person, like, how old is Matt Stafford? They'd be like, oh, 34. I mean, he's 2 weeks away from being 37. And clearly, I would say these last couple of years, at moments, he showed his age, but he can still have, like, when he has, like last week, when he's fresh, looks incredible. Uh, Stafford and McVay have the Super Bowl. So once you get that moment, Rodgers did, there's nothing like you can nitpick them or whatever, but they always have that trump card. I'm a Super Bowl champion. I won the Super Bowl. These type moments are just about adding pelts to the wall. And you go into Philly in a cold environment on a short week. Like I don't know what else we would say about McVay. It'd be pretty unreal. But I think there are just some underrated, obviously to me, the number one storyline is whatever quarterback wins this game in the Buffalo Ravens game is going to get talked about. Probably not even as much as the guy that loses the game. And John Harbaugh, rightfully so. I mean, I'd say he's on scholarship. Could it get a little weird for Sean McDermott? Be back-to-back years losing. It's one thing to lose to the Chiefs. It'd be another thing to lose to the team that's under them in the Ravens at home, and they would have lost to him twice. I'd say Sirianni, if he were to lose this game, and he's a pretty big favorite. Uh, I think he's safe just because almost you would give this operation another year. The problem is, and we'll dive into this in a second, like the interview schedule is a little weird. And obviously the Dion thing's out there, but like I think the easy move for Jerry is to hire Kellen Moore. Now, Kellen Moore, no one's gonna get him confused with Bill Walsh this season, but I think a lot of people would be like, I don't think it's Jalen's not the easiest guy to coach. And offensively, they dominated running the football, and they have had moments passing the ball. So if you lose that guy, we saw this before with Shane Steichen, and there's no guarantee. Like Shane Steichen might just be a bad head coach, right? He might be a really good offensive coordinator, good offensive mind, but a head coach is too much for him. But that was clearly a big loss for the Eagles. Like, do they want to go through this again? Because their head coach can't call plays. He's an offensive guy. They will not allow him to call plays, and he doesn't even want to because that would really expose him. So the Eagles, like, do you want to just let him go to the Cowboys? And maybe they do. Maybe they have another guy. But I just think the McDermott thing, the Sirianni thing could get a little weird. And speaking of Dallas, the one part of I think the NFL that they just can't figure out is this interview thing. It's just very, very janky. And it's tough. I don't have a great solution because a lot of guys that you want to talk to are in the playoffs and it makes it difficult. And they've had to put in rules to protect those guys because how can a human being? It's way easier. Anytime you see these GMs interviewing, like Fugazi from the Chiefs, it doesn't take anything away. It doesn't impact Andy Reid, the game plan, one iota. But when you're talking about coordinators, it's a pretty big deal. And for the number one seed, their benefit of last week, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, I think Spags, Nagy, Like they don't even know who they're playing. So those guys interviewing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no big deal. Doesn't impact this week at all. But I saw Kellen Moore is talking with the Cowboys tomorrow afternoon. Now it's a unique interview. He's known Jerry for a long time. He was not only a player there, coach there, and Jerry once talked about him like he was going to be their future head coach, and all signs point might be. But like you having to do an interview as a coordinator uh, on a game week of the playoffs seems pretty fucked up. And clearly, you can't do in person interviews while these people that are either out of the playoffs or out of a job can fly to owners, can do whatever they want. I just wonder if this whole process should start maybe after the Super Bowl and almost push everything back, or at least maybe till the bye week of the Super Bowl. Because right now, things just feel not fair. And yeah, I don't know. Something's got to give. I mean, there's been constant pushback on some of these rules. On look, if you're Dan Campbell, like that's why the one seed was so big because every team wanted to talk to you, your two guys. And winning the one seed wasn't just giving your guys rest, but it was allowing your two coaches, who are your game planners and play callers, to not have to cram and kind of just get to do interviews where they weren't rushed trying to game plan for something that was going to happen in 24, 48 hours. And I just think it's pretty messed up. And I think the league, and if I was involved as an owner of a team that constantly has people getting interviewed, I would continue to want to remedy this and make some changes. I wanted to bring you something from my friends at Louisiana Hot Sauce. And I thought about this. I was like, let's do the hottest coach and player headed into this weekend. It's obviously the second round of the playoffs. This is presented by our friends at Louisiana Hot Sauce. Bring your food to your big game party and take it to a whole nother level with the original Louisiana hot sauce. With bold, authentic flavor that embodies the rich culinary tradition of Louisiana, the original Louisiana brand hot sauce is perfect for those who demand flavor with just the right amount of heat. Speaking of hot, has a player ever had one catch for 10 yards, looked more angry on the sideline, yet had a more impactful week? A.J. Brown. He is reading a book called Inner Excellence. It's by a guy named Jim Murphy. I'll be honest, I'd never heard of it. Based on the Amazon rankings, most people had not either because it wasn't even ranked in the top 520,000 books on Amazon. Yet he gets caught. I don't even want to say caught. He just gets seen on camera during the Packers game. And I think it's clear he's trying to just calm himself down because his quarterback struggles to throw him the ball. I know Jalen pretended that everything was great. Everything was awesome a couple weeks ago. You don't read a book called Inner Excellence with highlighted portions if you're not trying to calm your nerves on the sideline for not getting the football. But AJ Green, you talk about this word's become very popular. Are you an influencer? What type influence do you have? He took a book that was not ranked in the top 500,000 books on Amazon to number one overall. He had one catch for 10 yards. Think about the impact A.J. Brown just made. If I had a book and that book was struggling on Amazon, I would do everything humanly possible to get to his people, to get to his agent, to get to Big Dom and say, what do I need to do to get my novel, to get my book in A.J. Brown's hands? So when the Fox cameras show AJ just firing through pages between the series, it's my book in my name. And I go to the number one spot on Amazon. So that is an amazing accomplishment. What AJ Brown did. I saw a little clip online about Jim Murphy saying how cool it was. He didn't even never saw this coming. I think he's kind of a motivation guy, works with people, but just made him a lot of money. And speaking about hot coaches, he looks good, but Sean McVay has a chance to. He has 8 playoff wins. And once you win a Super Bowl, you're kind of playing just everything's kind of gravy. And clearly he wants another one. But if he's never able to get another one, not the end of the world. You got the one. What really adds to your legacy, to your resume, is doing things like last week. There's fires in LA. He has to hop on a plane with not just his whole team, but their whole family, their dogs, their kids, go fly to Arizona, spend a couple days there, play essentially a road game against Minnesota because they got so many Vikings fans here in in the Valley, and he kicks their ass and he dominates. And he wins his eighth playoff game. He's not even 40 years old. He's got a Super Bowl and 8 playoff victories. I would say this: if he goes on the road to Philly and upsets the Eagles, it'd be one of the most impressive stretches. This team was not even good. I mean, watching them down the stretch, their offense looked terrible. I mean, their defense was never that good as we just saw against Minnesota. We all acknowledge we saw these two teams play. The Eagles are dramatically more talented than the Rams. And that's not a shot at the Rams. The Eagles are just, you could argue man for man, the most talented team in the NFL. So Sean McVay, we know he looks good. Got that hair, got that beard perfectly manicured, small waist, the little the joggers rocking. He just pulls it off well. Good looking dude. Awesome football coach. Could get his ninth win, go on the road, stay hot. Sean McVay. That is my hottest coach and player of the week. Brought to you by my friends at Louisiana Hot Sauce. Okay, before we get out of here, I got to do Fugazi Friday. And I think I saw, I'm sure if many of you that spent some time on the internet saw weeks ago, Schefter and my guy Gottlieb, I go on Doug's radio show every Tuesday, get into it online. And, Doug, this was over. Mike Vick was thinking about going to Sac State, and Sac State had a pledge of $50 million in NIL. And Doug was mad because he thinks it's all bullshit. And it clearly, like, Sac State does not have $50 million in NIL. And I think overall, people in the loop are just tired of the BS that gets thrown out there. Obviously, people make money in college athletics now. Cooper Flagg's making millions. Quinn Ewers just was making 7 figures. The top quarterbacks in this championship game are making 7 figures. People are making money. You got random players making 300-400 grand. Like, no one's even pretending that's not happening. And in the NFL, numbers get thrown out that are fake, and then we just learn what the actual numbers are. It's like, this guy actually got this. This is Jordan Love's actual contract. He gets $25 million here. He gets $25 million here. He gets $30 million here. This is not guaranteed. You get a clear picture to this is Justin Jefferson, what the actual money is. We're in college sports, at least us on the outside, have no clue what is actually true. But today it was reported that Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback who just declared for the National Football League, was offered $8 million in the transfer portal. Let me repeat that. He was offered $8 million in the transfer portal. I don't buy that for a second. One, because if you watch Quinn Ewers play this year, and really the last couple of years, he's not a first-round player. I'd argue he's not even a second-day player. Could he end up getting drafted in the third round? For sure. Do I think he's going to go in the top 50 picks of this draft? I do not. Well, I looked, and I just picked Ricky Pearsall, who was the 31st pick in the draft and went to the 49ers. So at the end of the first round. And in the first round, you get a 4-year, fully guaranteed contract. But his signing bonus, meaning once he signs his contract, the money he gets within, I think it's like a 14-day period, was a little over $6 million. So you're telling me that guys at the end of the first round are, and again, Quinn Ewers, the $8 million would just be for 1 year, and then he could go to the draft and get drafted and sign a contract. So when you look at it, like Ricky Pearsall's $12 million contract is over the course of 4 seasons. Quinn Ewers, they were offering him $8 million to transfer in the next week or two and essentially spend till potentially December there, maybe middle to late December. 12 months, 1 year contract, $8 million. Sam Darnold this year got 1 year contract worth $10 million from the Minnesota fucking Vikings. I don't believe for a second this is true. I am calling complete BS. And this NIL is becoming the biggest fugazi we've ever seen when it comes to some of these numbers being thrown around. And listen, if you're an agent, you want these numbers out. I think it has become the new Jordan Love signs for $275 million. It's like, well, actually, he got 155 guaranteed. I think that's what these NIL deals are becoming. Maybe there was, hey, Quinn, you transfer here, we'll pay you $2 million with the chance to equal 8. Remember when Florida offered that kid Jaden Rashada, I think $12 million, and then he thought they pulled out on him, and then he sued him, and then he transferred from Arizona State to Georgia. Now he's transferring again. I think all these guys are realizing a lot of this money is fake. Clearly, there are a lot of guys making 250, 300, $500,000. Good money playing college football. And there are the occasional quarterback signing a true deal for maybe $1 million, $2 million. Last year, Cam Ward, who it's up for debate where he's going to go in the draft, but made less than $2 million. And now Quinn Ewers was going to be offered $8 million in the transfer portal. I've heard of budgets that are big in the transfer portal that are like 12 to $15 million. Ohio State broke the bank this year with $20 million. So even if you have the biggest budget possible in college football, you're going to give 40% of that to Quinn Ewers, who many could argue is kind of the liability of this Texas team. I don't see it, and I don't buy it. And if I were you and I see these headlines, I would just assume most of them are fake. Doesn't mean there's not money behind it, but the numbers getting thrown out are just completely fabricated.